we're going to come on to tell you where that video came from a little bit later when I hand over to Liz. But I'm going to start with a story. I'm going to start with a story about how science is helping to mend broken hearts. And I saw at the back, we have the posters, we have people who know very much about what I'm going to talk about in terms of the particular molecule, because I'm going to talk about modified RNA. So RNA is ribonucleic acid. It's present in all of our living cells like DNA, and essentially it is the messenger between the DNA with the instructions to protein productions in cells. And at AstraZeneca, our scientists are developing a process by which modified RNA is being injected into damaged heart tissues and stimulating the production of proteins that are actually regenerating blood vessels faster and stronger. So you can imagine a world where we have a patient who's had a heart attack, they receive this AstraZeneca medicine, and their heart is actually going to heal. So that's what I think is really exciting about some of the science that we're generating, because it's kind of science fiction turned into science fact. And that's the process that you could see on that video. But why am I telling you this? So I'm Rebekah Martin, and I'm currently the head of Global Reward and Diversity at AstraZeneca, but my first degree was in science. So I'm passionate about science. It inspires me with the innovation that we are generating at AstraZeneca and how that can connect to our greater purpose. And innovation is all about having diverse perspectives, different thinking, bringing it together in an inclusive environment. And it really is who we are and what we do. So without diversity, without inclusion, we're not going to be able to innovate. We're not going to be able to do what we need to do to reach our purpose. But my role from a global perspective is about designing the global diversity and inclusion strategy. And in that capacity, I get to work with great people like Liz.
Thank you, Rebekah. Hi, everyone. My name is Liz Moran, and I look after talent development and inclusion for the U.S. commercial business. In the U.S. commercial business, there's about 6,000 employees, and our responsibility is to make sure that we are commercializing the products in our pipeline so that we can get our medicines in the hands of patients.
Thanks, Liz. So a little bit of a snapshot about AstraZeneca if you're not aware of us. So we're a biopharmaceutical company, and we are looking at inventing and delivering to patients medicines in three main therapy areas. They're oncology, respiratory, and what we call CVRM, which is cardiovascular, renal, and metabolism. Last year, we had a revenue of over $22.5 billion US. We reinvested $6 billion of that back into R&D in our major research sites. We have around 12,000 scientists working in our company, and employees across the globe, we have more than 60,000. And this is our purpose, to push the boundaries of science to deliver life-changing medicines to patients. And that really does inspire us every day. It's the reason why we come to work. It doesn't matter if you're a scientist, if you're in commercial, if you're on the factory floor, you work in finance, IT. This is what really connects us. And so I wanted to share that message with you about why we're all here. But it's innovation-driven. So intuitively, we know, and I'm kind of preaching to the converted with this group, I expect, that diversity and inclusion is what really makes teams more effective. But because we're scientists at heart, we want to understand the data, and we want to give ourselves confidence in kind of the business case around diversity and inclusion, why it's so important. And I was fascinated to hear from Miyoko a moment ago, and we saw that slide with the difference in the production of patents. The innovation, the core innovation that's happening in diverse teams is greater than those that are non-diverse. And so some of this data you can see on the slide here. You've got better decisions being made faster, half the meetings. Executive teams that are more diverse have better business outcomes. And so that really does demonstrate that this is kind of mission critical for us as an innovation-driven company, that we focus on this and we get it right. So what do we do about it? Well, we have very purposefully made some changes at AstraZeneca across the last 5 years, and we do have targets, and I'm going to tell you about our commitments in this area. So our organizational structure, we've removed layers of management, so we've taken away some of that organizational hierarchy that used to exist. And that means that we are empowering our employees to make decisions faster and to act upon them. So they are, they've got the power in their hands. And we also have an increasing proportion of employees coming to us who have less service, so less than 2 years service. And you can see the figure on the slide there, it's up to 31% last year. And what that means is we've got lots of fresh perspectives coming in, lots of new ideas, and that would be a missed opportunity if we didn't harness those ideas and explore them as a team. But we also have targets around what we want to achieve in terms of diversity metrics. So we have increased the proportion of women in senior roles in our organisation up to above 44%. And we have programs that support that. We have a Women as Leaders program, where we identify women of potential and we support them with their development. So we're really investing behind people and helping them to progress. But we also have a focus on ensuring that we've got good representation at a leadership level of people from our emerging markets in Japan. And you can see that the figure there, whilst it's 13.5% now, it has grown significantly from where it was 5 years ago at just 5%. But diversity, you know, it's a metric, it's something you can measure. What we want to make sure is that we're also inclusive in the way that we operate. And so I'm going to tell you about one thing that we've done on a global level, which has made a real difference in turning our company into a community, which is the introduction of Workplace. I don't know whether many of you are familiar with Workplace or what it is, but it's essentially Facebook for work. It's a Facebook company. And what that means is, through the social media platforms, we've been able to break down organizational silos, really flatten the organization. So whether you're the CEO or you're someone, a sales rep out with patients and HCPs, you're going to be in contact with one another. And in doing this, people are expanding their networks, they're being brave, they're putting themselves out there, and we're using Workplace to connect people, to solve problems, to simplify the way that we work, but we're also using it for some really big questions like crowdsourcing, questions about our future priorities, and that's been incredibly powerful as we engage our organisation around sort of the reason why we're here and the challenges that we face. But I wanted to tell you a little bit about the journey that we're on in terms of diversity and inclusion. So this is a consciousness ladder. And every employee in AstraZeneca is unique. And we know that each employee is going to start on a different place on this ladder. So from not understanding the business case and the importance of having a diverse organisation and harnessing that with an inclusive approach and making sure people can share their views and opinions and ideas with us, right from that end of the spectrum up to appreciating the business case, knowing we need to do something about it, consciously working on improving skills in that space so we're acting in a more inclusive way, through to the point where we don't have to think about it. It just comes naturally to us. It's easy. We do it every day. And so as I look at what we're doing globally, one of the things that's been really important is that our efforts to move people along through this ladder, it's not a top-down approach. So it isn't me sitting in global saying, you must do this, or this is what's going to work for you over here, this is what's going to work for you over there. One of the fantastic things about our organisation, and I think this speaks to a point that Professor Evans was making in the keynote this morning around the role of the diversity officer, is that where you have locally inspired initiatives, which are really grassroots efforts, the key success factor is giving those an opportunity to flourish, empowering people to do something locally, and then listening to and learning from one another. So you're bringing the network together. And that's why I think it's fantastic that Liz has been able to come all the way from the US to join us today to tell us about something really awesome that the US team achieved this year. So over to you, Liz.
Thank you, Rebekah. Hi, everyone. To Rebekah's point, what I'd like to do is share with you a little bit about what we've done with our inclusion and diversity strategy in the US. And I have this one slide that I'm going to take you on a bit of a journey, so come along with me. What I'd like to do is start in March this year. I remember the day like it was yesterday. It was a Thursday, and I'd actually come into work just a little bit late because I had to take my son to a medical appointment. And as I rounded the staircase on the second floor, I opened the doors to the hallway, or to the office, and I see the head of regional planning, and he says to me, "Hey Liz, are you ready for Monday?" And of course I said, "Yes, Tom, I'm always ready." And then I said, "What's Monday?" Because I had no idea. And he said, well, go find EJ because I'm sure he wants to update you. So EJ is a colleague who works on my team. And so I put my belongings down. I head down to the cafeteria to grab a coffee and to find EJ and to find out what was really happening on Monday that I probably needed to be aware of. And I see across the room EJ with a combination of panic and excitement across his face. And anyone who knows EJ knows that he is cool, calm, and collected even on the most stressful days. So I knew something was happening. So I then learned from EJ that earlier that morning, Ruud Dauber, the head of the US business, had lunch with members of our employee resource groups. And during he had breakfast with them. And during that breakfast, he asked a question that was very telling for him. He said to all of the people at the table, on a scale of 1 to 10, where would you say we are with our diversity and inclusion efforts? And the response that he got was not aligned with where he hoped that we would be. And so from that moment, he turned to EJ and said, I have a US leadership team meeting with all of my direct reports on Monday. I would like to give you 45 minutes to come and present a refreshed diversity and inclusion strategy so we can make sure this becomes more of a priority for us in the business. That was when the spark happened. It was amazing. And in that moment, as I'm getting this update from EJ, I thought, this is fantastic. I'm really excited. And I'm also a little bit scared because I think there's a really high expectation right now to deliver something that's very meaningful for the business. So we had 2 days to prepare this strategy, which it's not usual and customary. We usually have a little bit more time. However, EJ and I had been working on a strategy over the coming months in anticipation that we would have some chance to speak to our leadership team. So we cleared our schedules for the next 2 days. We looked externally for best practice. We looked internally at our workforce demographics. We called all of our friends and family and said, what do you think about this strategy? What are the things that you're doing in your organization or your industry that we should also be thinking about so that we can put forward the best strategy possible? Fast forward to Monday. We had 45 minutes, and I can tell you I was incredibly impressed with the level of dialogue that we had, the conversation around what are the things that we should be doing now versus next year and the year after, and the support that we got from our US leadership team. So we came out of that meeting with full alignment on the strategy, which was, it's not always the case that happens. There's always some pushback or let's focus here, let's not focus there. We also walked out with a small but mighty budget, which for us was a first, that something like this was going to be funded in some way to make sure that we were moving this forward. And for me, that also had a significant meaning that this was something that our leaders were very serious about and really cared about. So we decided that being in the commercial business, we're good at a couple of things, but first and foremost, sales and marketing and launching products, so product launch. We wanted to make sure that we were going to take our inclusion and diversity strategy and launch it like it was a product and make sure it was happening that way to align with our mission in the organization to commercialize a product. So we decided that mid-year was going to be when we would launch our product, and that would be in July. And what we needed to do was figure out what we were going to launch, how we were going to do it, and make it really meaningful and impactful so it didn't feel like a push from HR or something that people were just going to be talked at about, but actually create something that had a bit of a draw to it. And so what did we decide to do? We wanted to ignite our network. So EJ and I put our heads together and we thought, who are the people who we should really be involving in this? Because it's not going to be EJ and Liz who are going to move the strategy forward with some guidance from Rebekah and her team from Global. And so we reached out to our employee resource groups, individuals who were already passionate about inclusion and diversity and already committed to moving the needle in inclusion and diversity. We agreed that we would launch our strategy through an inclusion expo and an inclusion conference. We would invite employees across the US commercial business and beyond. So we would have employees from outside of our area that could also benefit from some of the learnings and engagements. So we're in March. We decided we're going to launch our strategy in 14 very short weeks, which is not a lot of time, but we wanted to make sure it was really empowering. So we spent a lot of time marketing like we meant it. in the commercial business that's really important. So Rebekah mentioned workplace as one of the mechanisms that we as an organization are using to break down those silos and barriers and really communicate across. And we decided to campaign with a hashtag all in on inclusion, which has become so wildly successful. It's used across the US and globally whenever we're talking about inclusion and diversity. So I'm very pleased for that. And we marketed everywhere, on Workplace, through senior leader videos, through emails, pull-up banners such as this, to really make sure that people were aware of this and they didn't miss an exciting opportunity to learn more about our I&D strategy. I'm going to move to today is the day, July 19th and 20th. On the 19th, we had an Inclusion Expo, and you can see here some of the things that were part of that expo. It was about a celebration of inclusion where people could come and learn about themselves and learn about others. It was really meant to be hands-on and an interactive and engaging opportunity. I do have a short video that I'd like to share just to give you just a sense for what that felt like. Just go to the next one, sorry.
The next one?
That's my strategy. One more click.
One more?
Yeah, try that. Okay.
Good afternoon, everybody. That's not good enough for me. I said good afternoon, everybody.
Afternoon.
There we go. We got to get you guys in the spirit. This is all about a celebration around inclusion and diversity.
We're talking about inclusion, we're talking about diversity, we're talking about the underlying principles of unconscious bias, mindfulness. Those are all very, very, very important things.
We are providing the tools, the resources to make sure that we are building inclusion and diversity into the fabric of this organization so that we can be the #1 pharma business.
Diversity is one thing, but without inclusion, we're not really taking the advantage and the benefit of all the wonderful people, the ideas, the perspectives, etc., that we need to grow as a company.
I think it's important for AZ to have days like this because it's an eye-opener. You never know what you're missing with your biases that you have.
Welcome to the Unconscious Bias Workshop. What the workshop is designed to do is to help you understand what are some of the unconscious biases that may limit the way you view inclusion and diversity.
I learned about ways to combat unconscious bias and make sure that we are seeing people for who they truly are.
I've lost myself a few times in places just trying to fit in, and today was very eye-opening in thinking about myself and everybody else and being their authentic self to be successful.
Being yourself is the one thing that can make the workplace as inclusive as possible, and I think holding these events reminds people to be themselves and be accepting of others.
When you think about the best opportunities to build high-performing teams and have profound business impact, it's been my experience that those things happen with diverse talent and diversity of thought.
We've got a lot of talent, a lot of great people who work here of all shapes, sizes, experiences, ethnicities, out affording them an opportunity to really leverage the value and the insight and the experiences that they bring. We really hold the organization back from being as great as it can be.
The diversity of thought, the contributions, they'll pay big dividends over time for the company, but also for the individuals that work here.
It's about actually making a workplace that everybody feels great about coming to every day.
Today I learned that AstraZeneca is committed to honoring diversity amongst everyone. It's just amazing that we're putting the effort into making everyone feel welcome at our company, and it's a great place to work. I'm really grateful to be here.
I'm all in.
I'm all in.
I'm all in.
We're all in.
I'm all in.
I am all in.
I'm all in.
We're all in.
It's a really inspiring video, don't you think? Yeah, it's great. So that just gives you, I realize I probably have 2 minutes now, less than 2 minutes. I'm already a really fast talker too, sorry. So one last piece I want to share with you is after we had the expo, everybody went home. The next day we came back in and we launched our strategy. And we shared the pillars of the strategy, which was on a slide just right before this one, which I'm happy to speak to anyone about, to talk about what we really wanted to make sure we're moving the needle on. But we also had fantastic panels from speakers, leaders across the organization. We had an external keynote speaker come in and talk about her journey. And I can tell you that the feedback that I've received from both the Expo and the conference has been life-changing for me. There are people who have said, I've been with this organization for 22 years, and I have never had an experience quite as inspiring as this. Something is different. I mean, you can't get better feedback than that. So I was really delighted for that, and really appreciative for the opportunity for our leaders to really see the importance of inclusion and diversity, and also having the support and the agility and the flexibility from Rebekah and her team to say, what are the local needs? How can we support you from a global strategy perspective? But also, go ahead and move the needle on the things that are very important within your local area. And so I think that that's really a fantastic way for organizations anywhere, really, to make sure that you can pull through I&D and make things really meaningful.
Thanks, Liz. I think that's all we've got time for, so we're being told.
Well, we have time for questions as well.
Yeah, we should leave time for questions.
Thank you very much for that. That was brilliant. That was very energizing, and I feel a bit diminutive now compared to that motivating guy. But let's all be in with these questions and this inclusion and diversity. And would anyone like to ask something? Oh, excellent. The last two, the lady in white and then the lady in yellow.
Yes, thank you very much. My name is Saskia van der Vries. I'm at the steering committee of the Women's Network at one of the two universities in Amsterdam. Thank you for a very nice presentation. There's something that we will talk about quite a bit. This is implicit and explicit bias that we have. And you showed two videos, but the first video, I was looking at it with the glasses on the implicit and explicit bias, and I could see several images that you showed that to me represented implicit bias. For example, you see a white man pushing a disabled woman in a wheelchair. So what I sometimes do, I ask myself the question, now let's just switch these people around. Mm-hmm. Let's just take a young woman pushing a white man in a wheelchair. What does that tell us? And so in that sense, I sort of want to give you this, challenge maybe, or comment, that it might be very worthwhile looking at the first video again, and in these different images, changing the people around and asking yourself, what message are we bringing across? Thank you.
That's really interesting feedback, actually, I think. I mean, I know, so Liz, the video was something that you used as part of, in the US business, right? So you've actually got footage. These are real people, so they're not actors, these are patients and doctors, so you kind of get what you get. But I think it's an interesting perspective.
Yeah, thank you for raising.
Hi, my name is Christine Grant. I'm Associate Dean of Faculty Advancement in the College of Engineering and an engineering professor at NC State. And I was really struck by your Expo concept. And I would love for us to, I have a colleague here, she's probably shaking her head. I would love for us to do something like that on our campus. So I guess my question to you would be, is there a way that you could package this and kind of put together either the best practice or the steps to take in order to do that from a grassroots perspective? Because I don't want to necessarily have to go up to the chief diversity folks to do this. I want to do this in the College of Engineering, and I want to have people come together and come in and out. So anyway, just a suggestion that you might think about how you package that for other organizations to do, or just best practices to put it together. But thank you.
Absolutely. Happy to do that. And I think one of the ways that we were able to come up with something that really felt grassroots for us was by leveraging our employee resource groups. They hosted the Inclusion Expo and Conference. They put all of the idea generation together to say, what are the things that we want people to experience? So I agree with that approach, and I think it's really masterful. Yeah.
Do we have a lady here in the middle on the right side? Holding the pen up.
Thank you. My name is Mie Mortost. I'm from Technical University of Denmark. I have one question to Liz especially, because I really like the way that you had this huge event and you set focus on diversity and gender equality. But what was the goal exactly? What was the numbers you wanted, and how did you achieve it? And did you achieve it?
So I rushed through my one slide with my timeline where I was getting to the burning platform, and that really was the intention of this. if we would have stopped at just launching our strategy and creating a day of fun for people to come and explore and, you know, meet with some colleagues that they didn't know, we would not have been successful. That was not the intention. It was actually, that was the start of it. And so if I think about the slide that I have, today is the day follows by the burning platform, which is we have now made a commitment and also extended an invitation to every single employee following the Inclusion Expo and conference to say, are you all in, right? So part of that hashtag, and what is it that you're going to be doing as an individual, as a contributor in the organization, so that we can all be the best selves that we can be? How are you going to be more inclusive in your hiring practices? So there's also the strategy slide there that talks about the 7 key areas, and there was an element with an action for every single employee, so that as they walked out or they watched the recording, whatever it was that they did, there was something that they needed to take home with them and to be monitoring and to be driving as a contributor in the business. Does that answer your question? Okay, thank you.
There's a lady on the side there, and then maybe just over on the other edge, sorry. And then we'll come back to you, sorry about that.
Hi, good morning. My name is Valeria Sinclair Chapman. I'm a political scientist, so I'm not a bench scientist. I'm a political scientist at Purdue University in the States. So I was really intrigued by the idea of the conference and of the Expo, and I'm glad you answered the question about kind of what's next after that. But my question is actually related to something that both of you all touched on, and that is why diversity even matters, right? So it's kind of underlying this whole exercise, right? And one of the key things I thought you said was about bringing your whole self to work. I don't think you used that exact term, but I'm struck by it's an old Harvard Business Review article that talks about diversity, not only in the ways that we typically talk about it. There's a question. But not only in the way that we typically talk about it, but also, so not just diversity of thought or demographic diversity or gender or what have you, but diversity in the way that you understand work, right? And that's what's really meaningful about what I think that you guys are doing. And it might be useful to take a look at that article or to have a conversation about it. I'm happy to talk about it, but because it is the way when the one woman says in the video that there have been times when I've left parts of myself out of this job. I didn't feel like I could bring my whole self to work. There's a question of belonging. It changes the work that people do. And when you can create an inclusive space, it really has the outcomes that you talk about in innovation. So I didn't know maybe if you could touch on that a little bit about bringing your whole self to work, how you can encourage people to do that. I think that that's tricky.
Yeah, maybe I'll, if
Yeah,
it's
do you
okay.
want to start?
I think there's, actually, can we just go back 2 slides maybe? There's something up here that is foundational to the strategy. One more, please. Is we're at our best when you're at yours, and I think it gets to this bringing your full self to work. We know that when every individual, when all of us can come to work in whatever area or work that we do and bring our full self to work, we're more willing to share bold ideas, we're more willing to put ourselves out there, we're more willing just to give and add value in a place where we feel like we can make an impact, where we're respected, we feel like we belong, and that there is equity. Right? So those are the 3 things that I think about when I think about inclusion. And so an organization, regardless, can flourish when each individual can bring their full authentic self to work, make the contribution that they can, give you that additional discretionary effort to move the needle. And so it's a fantastic point, and I think, you know, inclusion will move more towards belonging in the future, because I think that that's exactly the essence of what we're talking about, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you
Well,
for that.
thank you very much, both of you. And I'm so sorry, we can't get to your question, but maybe outside we can speak again about this. So thank you very much. A big hand to Rebekah and to Liz. Then
thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And now I'd like to introduce Professor Jaap Schutten, who will be talking to us. Sorry, please.